Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you and ask, have you ever sat down and thought of the places you wanted to visit? Maybe you've made a list of places you'd like to go see, and these are abroad, I'm sure, or maybe even in-state, inland, but have you ever thought of experiencing Africa? So let's break away from the norm of the normal, let's go to Paris, or let's go to Europe in general. And while there is it's a beautiful place to go, Africa is one of the understated places to go and visit. And while most people have the first thoughts of Africa as a safari, or Africa has a lot of poverty, really, if we look deep enough in any culture or in any continent, we're going to find poverty. So let's look past that and see what beautiful places Africa really has to offer. Because Africa is actually one of the most diverse continents in the world. So some facts are from the source African Holocaust, which is a site for African information of different tribes and cultures. They say there's 3,000 different ethnic groups, 2,000 different languages, and approximately 58 different countries in the continent of Africa. So between all of that, that's a lot of diversity and a lot of places you can go visit and have cultural experiences and different experiences in each country. That's pretty cool. Africa also has many different environmental climate experiences. They have snow, they have temperate weather, they have deserts and tropics and mountain ranges and many more. So whether you're looking to go tromping through the jungle or to experience just the beauty of what is organically in Africa, it has much to offer in any of those aspects. So because there's so many different countries that are culturally diverse, we are only going to go over 4, which covers different areas of Africa pretty well. We're going to talk about the histories and cultures of Egypt, Madagascar, Uganda, and Mali. The culture, history, and facts you will learn will hopefully give you an idea and a little more insight of what Africa has to offer, because knowing a little more about these culturally diverse countries may give you more motivation to travel there. So with that, let's take a journey to Egypt. So Egypt is located in the northeastern part of Africa. It links itself to Israel in the Middle East. Some of the modern culture of Egypt, which is from the source of nationfacts.net. It's a website that I found with many different facts about Egypt. They say the capital of Egypt, which is Cairo, is the largest city in Africa. Egypt in general is home to 84 million people, and the main language is Arabic. The main religion is Islam. And every year, for a month, they celebrate a festival called Ramadan, which is a celebration of peace of the Quran religion. So with that in mind, it's just a little bit of what Egypt is in modern day, and there's so much more than that too. But let's talk about the ancient Egypt, because Egypt historically has a lot to offer if you want to experience something historic and walk through halls or places that people walked through hundreds of years ago. So to start are the pyramids, which we know are quite a landmark of Egypt. The pyramids, they were built to depict the rays of the sun. The hieroglyphs that the ancient Egyptians used as their language are dated back to 3200 BC, which is a very long time ago, and it's actually one of the oldest recorded languages to date. some of the beliefs they had were of mummification, which we are also somewhat familiar with, but they would mummify people and animals as well because they believed that it would give safe passage to the afterlife. They also had beliefs of gods and goddesses, and there were at least 1,000 different kinds they believed in throughout their reign of ancient Egypt. One of the gods they believed was Khnum, who they believed created humans, each human, on a potter's wheel. So that's kind of some interesting facts that you may or may not know about Egypt. Some more little facts that you may or may not know is that Egypt is home to the largest Arabic community population. It's 90% Muslim. The Nile River, which is home in Egypt, is the longest river in the world, and the Pyramid of Giza is the largest pyramid in Egypt, and this pyramid is comparable to the weight of 16 Empire State Buildings. That's huge. I mean, that would be pretty cool to go see one of the largest pyramids in Egypt. So now that you know a little bit of Egypt, this is just one culturally diverse place in Africa. Like I said, there's at least 58 different kinds of countries in Africa, and we're only going to be going over just a handful, just to give you an eye-opener. So I hope you go and experience one of the oldest cultures in history, and as you hear the next journeys, I hope that you are more open-minded in the end and want to travel to Africa to see these diverse places. The next journey you'll be taking is to Madagascar with Jasmine, and she's going to be talking to you about the history and cultures as well, and hopefully you'll be able to see why that should be one of the places that you will want to go to.
The country I'm going to be talking about is Madagascar. This is the continent, or the country of Madagascar, which is next to the continent of Africa. It is considered part of Africa. This is one of the basic photos that they use to actually show what Africa looks like. The basic culture there is an Asian-African mix, but there is also 18 different ethnical groups living on this island. The capital is Antananarivo. I know it's really hard to pronounce, and I probably didn't pronounce it right, but this is the capital of Madagascar. The population there is 24,430,325 people. The main language that is spoken in Madagascar is called Malagasy and French. Madagascar is mostly known for their friendly people that live there. They are also mostly known for their hospitality. They have no issue at all being able to give out a helping hand. Now, the island of Madagascar was one of the last major islands to be settled upon. In the 16th century and on, there was traders, pirates, and explorers from different countries, as in like Europe and like Arabic, who frequently visited Madagascar. In the 18th century, the reputation they had there was pirates and slave trade. They used to bring slaves from different countries there to trade them off to a different country. The 19th century, the island was dominated by Marina Kingdom. They were also trying to start policies while they were fighting the British and the French. In the 1883, French took away the capital. At that point, it was considered a new colony. And at that point in time, they abolished the slave trade law. So slaves were now free. They weren't sold off into different countries. In 1958, they adopted a flag. The red and white the red and the white represent the Marina Kingdom, and the green represents the Huva, who also fought with Madagascar against the French. Their general belief is the power of their dead ancestors. They call them Razana, and what it is they believe that their ancestors have the power to bestow upon great power to them as well. So they do what their ancestors ask, in order to pretty much gain their respect and their honor. Now, in everyday life in Madagascar, they tend to dance, sing, and they tend to chant to their ancestors for guidance or just for anything that they prefer that they need, food, water, they chant to their ancestors to help them bring what they are needed. Most of the Malagasy people who live there also live in little towns who are run by elders. They believe that the elders are the wisest of their group. The government also pronounced that for their cultural aspects and their expressions, that they still do festivals. They have the Festival of Rice, which is this picture right here. They dress all up in white. And then they have the Festival of Trees, where they dance around in kind of like a leafy kind of clothing. A couple of the interesting facts about Madagascar is that over 90% of Madagascar are the only animals that live there. They are known nowhere else. I know that you see like lions and tigers and elephants and stuff like that in zoos, but they actually take them from these kind of countries across seas into our zoos here in the United States. Some of the people also believe that Madagascar is considered an eighth continent, and due to that is because of how unique the continent is, or how unique the culture is, the island. They also believe that the taboo, magic, and the power of their ancestors remain prompt in many corners of the country. So they believe that their ancestors are in deer, or elephants, lions, whatever they believe that the life changes from the one to the next. Most of our vanilla that comes from the world is actually from Madagascar. They grow them there, and then they transport them to different countries all over the world. One thing that a lot of people do understand and that know about Madagascar when they think about it is lemurs. Lemurs is the most common, well-known Madagascar creature there that us as United States and other countries understand and know. Now that I've explained a little bit about Madagascar to you, we're going to go over to Nicole and she's going to be talking about Uganda.
Known as the Pearl of Africa, Uganda is one of Africa's 54 countries. Uganda is about the size of the city of Oregon, but much more densely populated. Uganda is located right in the center of the continent, right about above that lake, if you can see that. That is Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is Africa's largest lake. It has an area of over 26,000 square miles. Lake Victoria is also shared along the border of Kenya, which is the country right below the lake. For their government, Uganda has a multi-party republic with one legislative, which is very similar to America's government. Their president is this man. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. He has been president since 1986. Their presidential electoral system is very, very similar to ours. They go through campaigns and everything building up that we usually do. They have also very similar presidential requirements. They must be Ugandan citizens by birth, and they must be between ages 35 and 75, and they must be of sound mind, which I guess should be a given. For their economy, they're very, very big in trade. They export a lot of coffee, a lot of cotton, and a lot of tea. Coffee is their main export. And for imports, they import a lot of petroleum products, machinery, cotton machinery to build the cotton, to form the cotton from their own materials. They trade most often with us, the US, UK, France, Spain, Kenya, and Japan. For their languages, they have two official languages, which are English and Swahili. For some, it's surprising that English is one of their main languages, but Uganda used to be a British territory, so that makes sense that they speak English. And then Swahili is their second main language. But they have 43 native languages, registered native languages. 41 of these are indigenous. For 2 of them are non-indigenous. Among these 43 native languages, there are also many, many dialects. Uganda is very, very tribal. They don't have states, they don't have territories like many other countries. They have lots of tribes, and each individual tribe usually has their own language, and if not their own language, dialect of another similar language. Most of the languages are split into 3 families: the Bantu, the Central Sudanic, and the Nilotic. In 1995, Uganda became the second nation to have their constitution in sign language, to have that presented through sign language. Their culture, one of their most popular forms of transportation are bodas. They're like little motorcycle, dirt bikey, scooter things that men drive around the city, and they just pick people up. They're like taxis. They just pick people up, and they'll try to fit as many people on as possible to make it cheaper, I guess. And as you can see in the picture, it looks kind of crazy, but it's the most common form of transportation. They also have buses and like actual car taxis, and a lot of taxis are also like those big 18-passenger vans to get around the city. Not very many people have their own cars. Usually more business people, like higher up class-wise, and like schools usually have like smaller vans for transportation. And for their school, their education system is very similar to ours. They have 7 years of primary education, which is also like our elementary, and then they have 6 years of secondary education, which is like our high school, and then 3 to 5 years of post-secondary education, which is our college. Not very many Ugandans go to college or their post-secondary education. Usually they go into the workforce and work for families in surrounding farms and things like that. For their currency, they have what they call the shilling, and for like the currency exchange rate, $1 is equal to about 3,700 shillings, Ugandan shillings. In this picture, they have different colored bills and many coins to represent their currency. And for their culture, they are very athletic people. Football is their national sport. It's also our football. Or it's our soccer, their football. It is their national sport. And they also play cricket and basketball. Rugby is very big. Boxing is also very big. They have won 4 Olympic medals for boxing. And they have won 3 other Olympic medals for track and field events, mostly sprints. They've gone to the Olympics every year since 1972, I believe, except for the 1976 Olympics, which was boycotted. For food, they have very basic. Well, to us, it looks very simple. They have what's called chapati, which is this picture down here, and it's like I've had it before. My sister actually has been living in Uganda. She made it for us last time she was home. It's like kind of a mix between a pancake and a tortilla, which is an odd combination, but it's like a floury, thick tortilla shell. It's actually pretty good. I think so. It's very salty. They eat a lot of rice also, and they eat matok, which is this, it's like banana mush kind of pudding-ish stuff. Those are like the 3 main things they eat. Their climate, for being in Africa, you would expect it to be very hot. I know it was very cliche and very educated thing to say that Africa's hot, but it is pretty warm there. And being so close to the equator, Uganda has a very regulated temperature. Their average temperatures are from 78 to 84 degrees, and it stays like that all year long. They don't have a winter, they don't have a summer. It's constantly 78 to 84 degrees. Their nights get down to like 50-ish degrees, but still very warm all year long. They do have a rainy season. From March till May, and then October till December, and it rains a lot. This picture is a picture my sister sent me, and that's the roads. They don't have very many paved roads in Uganda, and this is one of the roads, and it's very hilly, mountainy, so like the rain just like washes out the roads completely during the rainy season, and it's very prohibits transportation very much. For their religion, 85% of the country claims to be Christian, and then I think about 13% is Muslim, and the rest is either none or tribal religions. Christianity is the biggest religion, but it's not like what we think of when we think of Christianity. It's very, men will come to churches and claim to be prophets, and then they will be worshipped, like men just like us, just regular people will claim to be prophets, and they will worship these people. But there are also like Catholics and Protestants and Seventh-day Adventists, which are more what we think of when we think of Christians. They do have many Ugandans also are those denominations of Christianity. 13% is Muslim. That is a very strong religion in Uganda. Tribal religions is just like everything you can think of under the sun of like worshiping animals, worshiping the plants, worshiping the sun, all sorts of things like that are under tribal religions.
Alright, now that you've heard about 3 other countries in Africa that make up its culture, I'm going to tell you about one more. I'm going to tell you about Mali. The country of Mali is located in the northeastern part of Africa, and it's located near Algeria and Niger. The population is about 17.99 million people, and it's the 8th largest country in Africa, and it's about 1,240,000 kilometers, and that is according to the info from the World Bank. So, Mali is made up of many different pieces. Its culture is made up of many different things, one of which being the government. Alright, the government is a republic. It is called the Republic of Mali. And there is an executive, a judicial, and a legislative branch, just like in the United States. The executive branch is made up of the president and the prime minister. Now, the president is the head of state, and the prime minister is the head of government. And the current president is Abraham Boubacar Keita, and the prime minister is Modibo Keita, and they're in power for 5 years. The judicial branch is made up of 2 courts. It's made up of the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court. The Supreme Court is in power for 5 years and is appointed by the Ministry of Justice. Now, the Constitutional Court is elected, I believe it's 7 years, and 3 people each are selected by the President, the National Assembly, and the Supreme Council of the Magistracy. So they get to elect people, and then they would help make the laws and everything that would help run the country, which adds to its culture. And then the legislative branch is 5 years the term. There's 147 members, and they're elected by the absolute majority vote. So you can see like similarities having the same branches and everything, but the different laws and everything in the country would make up its culture. And it is known to have high-risk political and economic situations, so that would also add to its culture because certain things they're not allowed to do and it's dangerous, so that would like add to it as well. And now, the next part would be the languages and the religions. Now, the official language is French, and it's the most common one, but there are many, many different national languages, some of which would be Bambara, Bomu, Bozu, Dogon, Fulfulde, and Hassania. And there's many more than that, too many to list, but each of them would add to the culture because there's so many languages, there are different groups of people that can speak them and can't speak them, so that would also add to it as well. Alright, and then the religions. This is information from World Atlas. The religions, 92.4% of the country is Sunni Islam, so they're Muslim, and that was introduced in the 9th century, so that has continued to grow since then, and based on their cultures and the rules and everything of that religion, then it would add to their culture. Alright. Now, back to the religions. 5.5% of the country is West African folk religions and animism. Now, animism is the belief that inanimate objects or other things have souls, so that would also add to the culture based on those beliefs. They would treat things differently, I guess. So then 1.5% is Roman Catholic, and that's about 200,000 people. It was introduced in the 19th century by French missionaries, and it's under the leadership of the Pope, because Roman Catholic, so the Pope has reaches all the way out to Africa, which would affect the culture as well. And then 0.8% is the Protestant Christianity. It makes up 1/3 of the Christian population in Mali. And then another one would be 0.2%, and that's just any other belief or no beliefs at all. So that would be like your atheism or something like that. Then, after languages and religion, there is the financial situation. Now, Mali is one of the poorest countries in the world. It is on the United States list of 48 least developed countries, and over half of the population live on less than $1 a day. So that would affect how they do things. Many people make their own clothing or their own food, and they have their own gardens and everything because they don't have enough money to like go out and buy things. So that would also add to culture because they have to learn to do things and it'd be unique to them. And it was ranked 175th out of 187 on the United Nations Human Development Index. It's lower than Afghanistan or Ethiopia, so that would also affect how they live their lives. And farming is the main occupation. 80% of the population farm and rely on fisheries, and they would also rely on the Niger River because they are right near that, so that's where they would get their fish, and many of which are exported. Now, farming, they raise goats, sheep, and cattle, and then they grow peanuts, corn, cotton, which is the most important one, most common, and Malayan sorghum. So these things, many of which can be exported to help raise money for the country, but not cotton is the most important and the most common one. It raises about $200 million in revenue for the country, and it is used for many things. So it'd be exported, and that is like their main source of income for the country. Another thing which is pretty unique to the country is their gold mining country. Gold counts for 2/3 of the country's exports, and it's the third largest gold exporting country in Africa. It exports about 45,000 tons of gold per year. So, that being said, not many countries can gold mine. There are two of the largest mines in the country are Sadiola and Lolu, and these would add to the culture as well because people would have to learn how to gold mine, and so they can be used for different things. And then the country, because it's one of the poorest, it relies not solely, but it relies a lot on importing goods from other countries, importing like machinery and petrol. And because of this, there's a trade deficit, meaning that they spend more money on their imports than what they're getting from exporting their goods. So that is because the country is poor and has a lower development, then it would affect how the people and the citizens live their lives. And just some little random facts about Mali would be they have large families. The average birth rate for a woman is 6 children. So they would have large families, which is not always common. Some countries have smaller families, some regions have smaller families, but the average is 6 children per family. Another one would be that they have handcrafted clothing. They make a lot of their own, like I said earlier, because they don't have like a lot of the resources to go out and buy new clothes all the time, so they would make their own, which is pretty impressive. They're very colorful, and they have like matching head wraps and everything. And another one would be they have traditional dances, festivals, and ceremonies, and ritual mask dances. So the music of the country is very important and can help add. And then they have their transportation, they use the railroad, schooling. It's kind of similar to the United States. And then the common sport is soccer. Then they have their food. They have a certain drink, it's called the Jablani drink, and it's made of hibiscus and ginger. And then they have many festivals, all of which are made up and have dances and music and different rituals and art and everything in it. So those are just some random facts about it, and that build up their own country. So, that being said, Africa is comprised of many different countries, and Egypt, Madagascar, Uganda, and Mali are only a few, and they only add part of the culture of Africa. There are many countries in Africa, meaning that there are many parts to its culture, which is very complex. So each one of them is made up of different governments and economic systems, have different languages and religions, and different customs and traditions and clothing and food and everything, so that would also add to the culture. And so that being said, these countries are just a few, and there are many different parts that made up the complexity of Africa's culture. Thank you.